Yeah. What up, Taz?
From the creature.
You guys ready? You guys ready? Should we do another jam? How about where's it at? Hold on, I'll find it. Here we go.
We came, we saw,
We kicked its ass. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Hey. Oh yeah, we're doing music tonight. I got the guitar right here, bro. What up, guitar slinger? Alright, let me check my sounding devices. like we're starting to get a couple people in here now. We're going to talk about some craziness tonight. Should be a lot of fun. I'm going to try and scare you guys. Stick around, bros. We got spooks, we got chills, we got some doomsday conspiracies coming at you. But first, let's jam out to the tunes. Have a little puffy puff. Shall we puff puff? Bum bum, tick it down, down, bound, round, bound, tick it down, bound, bound. Smoke 'em if you got 'em, bros. Let's get nice and buzzed up, because I'm about to take you on the dark side. I ain't afraid of no ghost. You afraid of a ghost? No. You ain't afraid of no ghost? Give people a couple of minutes to get in here. We're gonna start it off right. Woo! All right, bros. Are you guys ready to get into some of this? So 11-4, they're setting it off. I actually wasn't going to talk about Antifa tonight, but I can. Where you from, man, if I can ask? I'm from Maine, bro. All the way up here next to Canada. Alright, so I figured I'd wear a Love Trump's Hate shirt tonight. You know, might as well reverse it up on these bitches. You know how it is. You know how it is. Now, we're going to get into a couple of topics tonight. I hope you guys can hang. We're going to be talking about some shit that you might not know about, and then we're going to also be talking about some shit that you probably already heard, but you're going to get a take on it that's a little bit more dark and sinister than you might realize. Let me hit you guys with some of this stuff. Let's get into it. Okay, let me see what's at the end of my watch later, because I've been saving videos the last couple of days. Where do we want to start off? Well, let's start off with California legalizes the spread of HIV coming 2018. Let's talk about that for a minute. You bros ready? How dare you? I know what you're thinking. How dare you develop a stigmatism against people who have HIV, you racist? Look at yourself. Just step back from the TV. Take a look at yourself, you goddamn racist. How dare you develop a stigmatism against somebody who has AIDS or HIV? You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
You think HIV is something to be laughed at, Kyle? Well, let's just see how funny it is now, asshole. What?
And you know what's fucked up? If you did this to somebody in California, you gave them AIDS, you administered your blood inside of their mouth or whatever it'd be, and you, let's say Kyle wanted to sue Cartman, it would be a $50 ticket in California. $50! A fucking parking ticket. I give you AIDS, you want to sue me, it's $50. Really, bro? Really? How dare you develop a stigmatism against somebody who has AIDS? You don't want AIDS? Well, that just makes you racist.
California Governor Jerry Brown helped pass a bill a few days ago called SB 239, which decriminalizes willful transmission of HIV. State Senator Scott Wiener from San Francisco co-sponsored this bill, saying that it would benefit gay communities by removing the stigmas that come from having a contagious, incurable, terminal disease. Well, he didn't say it just like that. The law previously punished people who knowingly exposed or infected others with HIV by up to 8 years in prison, and this new legislation will lower jail time to a maximum of 6 months. Today, California took a major step towards treating HIV as a public health issue instead of treating people living with HIV as criminals. That was according to Mr. Wiener. Scott Wiener said that this new law will actually end new HIV infections because instead of threatening people with jail time, the state is providing an opportunity to get tested and access necessary medical care. Senator Joe Anderson of Alpine voted against the bill, arguing that it puts the public at risk. He says here, "I'm of the mind that if you purposefully inflict another with a disease that alters their lifestyle for the rest of their life and puts them on a regimen of medications to maintain any kind of normalcy, it should be a felony. It's absolutely crazy to me that we should go light on this. Representatives of the LGBT community have come..."
Can I ask you guys a question? Do you live in California? Does this type of shit worry you? Do you want your kids to have HIV? Are you afraid of getting AIDS? What if you have a motorcycle accident? You need a blood transfusion. What happens if that blood has AIDS in it?
Looking forward to celebrate seeing the passing of this bill as a good thing for their community. Rick Spur, Executive Director of Equality California, said that he was elated that the governor signed the bill and changed the state's archaic laws. This is an important bill that modernizes California.
Listen to that. Archaic. Let's definition. What's the definition of archaic?
Archaic, very old or old-fashioned.
So according to them, it's old-fashioned. Oh, that's old-fashioned. You don't want AIDS? That's so old-fashioned. Oh, how dare you not want AIDS? Oh, you're so old-fashioned. What the fuck?
California's HIV laws. It will really advance public health and reduce stigma and discrimination that people living with HIV have suffered. 2017. The year where a hypothetical person's good mood and emotions are more important than somebody's life.
Al B, sorry if I missed you, bro.
That I have read
I see you, Al.
SB 239.
What up, man?
Supporting arguments discuss the supposed stigma of HIV and how archaic laws have oppressed gay communities. They are so far down the critical theory rabbit hole that they have forgotten entirely that this is a deadly and incurable disease that seems to target gay communities specifically, ironically enough. Perhaps removing discouragements that existed to prevent careless and selfish HIV patients from spreading it to others is a terrible idea. It is also important to point out that this is decriminalizing intentional spreading of an incurable, deadly disease. HIV and AIDS don't have a stigma. They have a reputation that should rightfully discourage others from coming into contact with them.
We're not just sure, we're HIV positive. Will you stop it with that?
AIDS burger in paradise. AIDS burger and it ain't nice.
Nobody likes Jimmy Buffett except for frat boys and alcoholic chicks from the South.
Little boy in South Park, dying of AIDS in the cold dark. How he got AIDS, I haven't a clue. Wasting away again because of AIDS and stuff.
I'm sorry, it's not funny, I know. But anyways, you get what the fuck I'm trying to say, right? You get it. That shit's fucked right up, and you know it's true. Now,
You think HIV is something to be laughed at, Cal?
I had a couple of things I wanted to talk. I have so much I want to talk about. I don't really know where the hell to start. I wanted to talk about Fukushima a little bit. Are you guys aware of Fukushima? You know Fukushima? Are you aware of what that is? Let me just bring you back up to par. In 2011, we had one of the worst earthquakes. It was a 9.0 earthquake in Japan. You might remember. It was right off Tokyo coastline. And it devastated a power plant called TEPCO. Team America, Rant, play 888. I will, bro. I'll play it later on. I will. It was one of the largest tsunamis ever recorded. It was a 9.0 earthquake. It happened in, like I said, off the coast of Tokyo. Totally devastated a nuclear power plant called TEPCO. Now, these types of things happen all the time, but the reason why this one was really bad, the reason why this one was terrible, is because they were developing a new weaponized isotope, a radioactive isotope that doubles in life doubles in strength, every 70 years. So every 70 years, it doubles. It gets worse and worse. And it's literally being poured into our Pacific Ocean on a daily basis. We're talking Hiroshima bomb after Hiroshima bomb being dumped into the ocean on a daily fucking basis. And no one's talking about it. Nobody seems to care. And this has been going on since 2011. I'm going to play a few things, and just to kind of bring you up to par of where we're at here. Let me see if I can find this for you, bros. There's a very particular video from this guy right here, BP Earthwatch. I'm going to try and look for it. It's a little bit shorter of a video, but we're going to click on this one, see if we can't find the actual video.
February the 22nd, 2017. There's new information coming in today from Fukushima. Goes back about a week, and you've got 3 different scientists with reports coming in over that period of time. Let's take a look at it. It says scientists fear Fukushima radiation is hitting the U.S. and it's to worsen. A lot of people are very concerned. Experts, billions are being exposed. Guys, that's not just the United States. Reactors will continue to pour water into the Pacific for the rest of time. They were saying that it could be years, even hundreds of years, but now to the end of time, because they...
Alright, I'm going to try and find this. This video right here explains it incredibly well. I'll do my best.
February the 5th, 2017. The last video I promised to do an update on Fukushima. information started coming in 6 days ago on these updates, and we're going to look at some of the images from the underwater robot that can
Hard to find shit like
under
this,
the containment vessel, because now they have visual proof that Unit 2 is melted through, and there's massive deposits of this black oily looking substance that they think is the radiation. So we've got tons of this stuff spread out and into the water table underneath this going into the ocean. We've known it, but now they have visual proof. First, let's look at this from Charles Stewart University. It's radiation doses, and it says 10,000 millisieverts, which is 10 sieverts, is a short-term and whole-body dose would cause immediate illness, such as nausea and decreased white blood cell count.
Yeah, let me pause them there because these guys didn't even have... What up? What up? How you doing, man? These guys couldn't even get into the core of where it was melting. They actually had to develop a fucking robot. Like, if you got into the room where this shit was going on, you would pretty much get stage 4 lymphoma cancer within about 45 minutes. You would fucking die. So they had to develop a robot to even go in to see what the hell the problem was. And the core literally melted down through the foundation. And like he just said, the water is still washing up onto it, carrying that radiation out into the sea. And it's probably going to happen for the rest of time. Forever. And every 70 years, that shit gets stronger. Every 70 years, it doubles in strength. And it's literally filling up our Pacific Ocean. I heard it even killed the robots. It did. They had to develop a few robots before they could get close enough. And God knows if that's even true. Who the fuck knows? I have no idea. But if not true, and even if it is true, this is one of the silent time bombs. The silent ticking time bombs. This is one of the best doomsday theories I can come up with. I mean, this right here, on a long enough time scale, will kill everyone. Right? Is that not spooky enough for you? Does that send the thrills and the shocks down your spine? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Let's keep getting into this. Now, what does it say? Short-term and whole-body dose would cause immediate illness such as nausea and decreased white blood cell count. A subsequent death within a few weeks, between 2 and 10 sieverts in a short-time dose would cause severe radiation sickness and increasing the likelihood that would be fatal. And this is just being around the building of this place. They were hiring hobos and homeless people $100 a day to take the fucking fuel rods out of this place. Guarantee they're dead. Guarantee they're dead. Nobody's talking about Fukushima. Now, let's get more into this.
And death within a few weeks. Between 2 and 10 sieverts in short-term dose would cause severe radiation sickness with increasing likelihood that it would be fatal.
Let me just pause this real quick. Now, this type of stuff happens all the time. You can look it up in history. It constantly happens. The reason why Fukushima, I think, is worse is because it was a new weaponized type of radioactive isotope that was designed to do exactly what I just told you. It doubles in strength every 70 years. So imagine this. Imagine what I'm trying to tell you. If the Pacific Ocean is literally radioactive, right, and there's trash islands out there that are radioactive, that is being soaked up into the clouds and being distributed all over the fucking world. All over the world. And on a long enough time scale, that shit will kill everything. Now, they're already picking up traces of radiation in the milk and in the eggs and in the pastures. Sorry, I'm fucking stupid. In the dairy of California. They're already finding traces of radioactive bullshit in the dairy of California. Really? Eggs and milk? You gotta worry about shit like that? And then on top of that, the FDA is approving cloned meat along with everything else. And they wonder why America's #1 in cancer. #1. Jesus.
Now remember this. A lot of times you've seen these doses in the millisieverts, like 10,000. But 2 to 10 is likelihood that it would be fatal. These are short-term doses, so remember that. 1 sievert, or 1,000 millisieverts, in a short-term dose is about the threshold for causing immediate radiation sickness in a person of average physical attributes, but would be unlikely to cause death. But it would lead to a higher risk of ongoing cancer. And you can pause this and look at it. One thing.
Yeah, we'll do that real quick. So what they're trying to say is that this is the type of radiation that's acceptable, or depending upon how much radiation you've been exposed to, it will tell you just how long of an average that you would be alive for. That's basically what this survey is. Within over 5 years, the limit of radiological personnel, such as employees in the nuclear industry, uranium or mineral sands miners, and hospital workers who are closely monitored. Wow. Oh, fuck. Hello, kitty. Oh. Let me get back into this, sorry.
February the through the vessel, through the grating. If the deposits are confirmed to be melted fuel, it will be the first time the utility has found any of it at the 3 reactors that suffered core meltdowns.
Hi, buddy. How you doing?
It has been a mess since day one. It says they plan to send a robot in again March 1st, while its survey plan for Reactor 2 remains unclear because of the high radiation levels. And they're admitting, guys, that they have not developed the technology yet to clean this up.
They were saying it was going to take 200 years to develop the
We've
technology.
We've seen it for years. We've seen the impact on the West Coast.
I guarantee they'll figure something out before then, and if not...
The denial from mainstream, maybe with the new president. He's got his hands full right now, but this needs to get very close to the top of the list. And forget about the fake gold.
Let me get into some more of this stuff.
We do know that biological warfare that has been conducted over human populations has produced this yellow rain. What's interesting about this is that a lot of the things that are found in this yellow rain come from molds and funguses and things like that have been found in bioweapons and chemtrails and the rest of it. So I think that, I don't have all the ins and outs of this, but I think there was something more to this this earthquake tsunami thing. I think that this was an act of war. I think this was this was the Syria, the Libya thing, and this being launched simultaneously. I think this was an act of war. I think they are preemptively launching a new war for the first time ever without actually announcing.
I'm taking you guys back in time right now
and creating a war. And doing it by subterfuge and doing it without, having to admit it.
I'm
that
taking
way
you back to 2011 when this whole thing started.
Into a new war when indeed we are. And I believe that's what's going on. The more I look at this, I think that this was a hit. I mean, with the yellow rain and stuff, I don't think that's because they're real quick to try and deflect away from it and say, oh, it was just pollen, So.
I know what you're talking
about. Everything points in the direction, especially when you had Japan being the provider, or it was talked about being the provider of these nuclear fuel rods to Iran. I think that.
Well, this week marks the anniversary of the tritium, which is a mobile radioactive isotope, but clearly radioactive cesium, 134, 137, strontium-90, we're seeing a full range of radioactive contaminants now moving, which indicate that the damaged cores of these reactors, the meltdowns themselves, are now contributing to the contamination of the Pacific Ocean and groundwater that's moving.
Let's talk about Fukushima.
About a rate of
I'm bringing you guys back to 2011.
Metric tons per day. So, but these numbers are really only approximations and will vary. But clearly, a lot of radioactivity is moving through groundwater into the ocean.
Now, why is the plant continuing to leak? You'd think they would have, or maybe...
Man, they're downplaying it. A lot of radio. Do you know how much radioactivity is going into the Pacific Ocean on a daily basis since 2011? A fuck ton, man. I'm talking a fuck ton. A couple Hiroshima bombs a day. A day. Being leaked into the ocean since 2011. And no one's talking about it. I just think that that's insane. I'm trying to find better info for you, bros. Let me just fast forward a little bit.
And now I'm glad to say I don't eat seafood, and I never have. I don't fuck with seafood. And now I'm glad I don't. Because of this shit right here. You know how much contamination is going to happen inside that damn seafood? I've been saying it was going to start killing people that eat seafood, and that's going to lead me to the article I'm about to show y'all today. As you see, holy Fukushima, radiation from Japan is already killing North Americans. By Jeremy Williams.
It's been almost 3 years and the Fukushima nuclear power plant is still making headlines, though often it's for the completely wrong reasons.
Yeah, think about it.
Trace, you're setting the record straight for D News. If you go on Facebook or Tumblr...
Think about the timeline, Fox. Think about the timeline between the Iranian deal that got pulled, right? All the things that were happening in Lebanon, Turkey, Afghanistan, Iraq. You got the NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, that we were backing out of, that we wanted to renegotiate, and the TPP. And then Trump. I mean, put it all together. I'm starting to think that the like you said, the Gulf oil, the BP oil spill, and the Fukushima radiation spill is all part of the same system. It's all part of the same bullshit. Yep. Are you talking about the North Dakota pipeline? Because I think that that's got a big something to do with it as well. You know, a lot of things are being chummed in the water to set up a whole lot of shit that's getting ready to be poured onto the planet. What can they do, though? That's a great question. They're trying to create robots in order to even see what the hell the problem is. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Or Twitter or wherever, and you look for information on Fukushima, you're going to run into a lot of lies and myths. Journalism is here to make sure that the truth is being delivered, not rumor and conjecture. That's where social media comes in. We've gathered some examples to debunk some of these Fukushima Fuku-ups, if you will. You might have heard of Fukushima was leaking radioactive water into the ocean at a rate of about 300 tons a day. It made its way around social media, usually accompanied by a map, which I think we've got somewhere. There we go. This map doesn't measure radioactivity at all. Note the legend, it says centimeters. This is a real map from NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, but it's measuring tsunami waves from the March 2011 earthquake, not radiation seepage over time. 300 tons may sound like a lot, but in comparison to the ocean, it's not that much. Mostly, the experts are worried about fish immediately around the plant, not on the beaches of California or Mexico or Canada. Even the Hawaii State Department of Health has been monitoring their water for radioactive material, and they are way closer than the Western Americas. And they've got nada. Zip. Zero. Nothing. The reason is, it's been more than 2 years. The Fukushima plant's water runoff has not only been diluted into the ocean, 300 tons per day sounds like a lot, but since we know a gallon of water weighs just over 8 pounds, 300 tons is 71,895 gallons, which is only about 1,500 bathtubs full of water.
A day
in comparison. So
since 2011.
Quintillion
That's a lot.
Gallons in the Pacific Ocean. Radioactivity also...
See, the reason why I want to listen to guys like this is because it's the opposite side. These guys are trying to downplay the fact that Fukushima is not a danger. And I guarantee you it is. Fuck you, 300 tons a day isn't much. No, it's 6+ years, exactly. That's why I like talking, that's why I like hearing from guys like this, because it allows me to debate with that. Because I think that that's a bunch of bullshit. I think he's trying to fucking downplay the fact that this is a big deal. Not to mention that it was a weaponized isotope that was designed to double in strength. So on a long enough timeline, this thing is really going to cause a lot of damage. Maybe not in our lifetime, but trust and believe. with it being evaporated up into the sky and carried around through the jet streams the way it is. You want to talk about different types of things that's going on in the ocean. I'm glad that we brought this topic up. I got some things that are going on in the ocean that I thought were pretty weird. Check this out. Got something going now. Up in here, up in here. Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Now what the fuck? What's up with this shit like this? That don't seem a little weird to you? A little alarming? I think that's kind of weird, man. What up, Gun Grace? How you doing? You fucking ain't right. That's really fucking weird. That's what the Pacific Ocean looks like now. And it's desolate, dude. It's desolate. The Pacific Ocean is fucking dying. It's literally dying.
Over 20 species now are near collapse. The halibut, the herring, the salmon. Not only did the salmon not come back last year, I think it was 80% of them didn't come back, but the young salmon that were born when those that did come back went up their streams of origin and were able to produce baby salmon before dying. The baby salmon, when they go out to sea, are dying en masse. And these imbecile, no, they're not imbeciles, they're cowards. These cowardly marine biologists will not say the R word. They say, well, something's causing acidification. There's a virus. They're lying. They're not telling the truth. No one will say it could be related to the radiation that's being dumped into the ocean around the clock for over 3.5 years now. They won't say that. I salute some of you folks in Alaska who are involved in the fishing industry. It took the fishermen up there to demand that the fish be tested for radioactivity. Not all the captains, just a few, but some did. And they found out what they suspected was there. Radiation bioaccumulating in the fish. Remember, 80% of the salmon didn't come back last year. We just got word the salmon, the babies, which were coming down out of the mountain streams where they were born into the salt water, were dying. What's killing them? All right? One captain said, this is the worst fishing he has ever seen. It's a catastrophe. Crabs, by the way, up there have turned blue. The herring, the cod, halibut, pollock. He said that the catches are literally dropping off a cliff. There aren't any. They're gone. They're dead. Prove me wrong. They're dead. They didn't migrate down to Chile and not hanging out down there, having a good time. They're dead. This is the death of the biggest ocean on the planet, the greatest catastrophe. Japan should be held fully accountable. So should General Electric. So should Toshiba or anyone else involved with this nightmare. All of them.
Subcontractors too that service. TEPCO's just an umbrella company.
TEPCO. They put TEPCO in charge of this shit. Now, sounds like he's about to tell you the truth about TEPCO, because he was going to say TEPCO is an umbrella company. What that means is it's like the center of a web, and shoots all these webs out into different directions. So a lot of these different types of companies are affiliated. If you think about it, there's really only 3 major companies that produce energy on planet Earth. You got BP, Mobil, and Shell. That's it. So those are your umbrella companies. And all these different types of companies, whether it be shale oil, electricity, any type of energy that's generated, these are the companies that generate energy. That's what they do. They're energy generating companies. So TEPCO is nothing more than a web branch of one of these major corporations or companies, whatever you want to call them. They were the ones that were left in charge to clean this mess up. They can't clean it up. They can't. They've already admitted to NASA. They've already admitted, and they had Fuckface come out that what the fuck is his name? The Japanese dude that's always with NASA. He's a cool guy. Anyways, he came out and he even said that shit was pouring, what, 300 tons a day? Okay, yeah, maybe that wasn't a lot 6 years ago, but it's been doing it for a long time. It's been going for a long time, running for a long time. Sooner or later they gotta cut you down. Sooner or later they're gonna cut you down. And you know it's true. That's why I want to put some light on this situation, because I'm hearing people talk about doomsday theories that just don't make sense to me. You really want to talk about a doomsday theory? Here's one right here. Fukushima. Fukushima, on a long enough time scale, has the potential and power to really fuck some shit up. And it's the silent killer. It's Mother Nature. It's a virus. It's a disease. It's this. It's that. Couldn't be Fukushima. Quiet now. Hush now. Hush now. Let's listen to some more of this.
General Electric, so should Toshiba or anyone else involved with this nightmare. All of us.
Subcontractors too that service. TEPCO is just an umbrella company.
Of course.
All of the companies that actually provided all of the technical and other support were all American companies, basically.
Yeah, a lot of the crabs being caught in Alaska, they're all dead. They bring them up and they're dead. So I mean, this is not a joke. This situation in Alaska, which was the breadbasket for fish and seafood, you're looking at right now, ladies and gentlemen, the death of seafood. In fact, it's dead. Look at the, I'm sorry to say this, look, I don't eat meat. I don't believe in it. I don't touch it. What's the name of the chain? Red Lobster? They're toast. They're going to have to start advertising that their fish comes from the Atlantic, or they're going to be out of business. It's just going to happen.
Well, the deep South Pacific, they're coming from Argentina. What happens is all these oceans are connected. Now, what people should understand is what happens if you let this continue to spin out over, say, the next 5, 10, 20 years. Oh. Even if nothing else happens, no war starts, no economic collapse, no...
Let me tell you, they're about to get into the doomsday topics. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, why don't we just stop these companies? We have. We've actually lobbied against them many times. Not me personally. I'm just a virtue signaler sitting on a couch. But the problem is that we have tried to stop these companies. Rules were set in place. Laws were made. The problem is that they can only be fined, I think, $250,000 or $350,000 a day. That's the most a company can be fined a day. That's something like that, $250,000 or $350,000 a day. Well, for a company that makes almost $10 million a day, it's just good business just to pay the fine and keep business where it needs to be. Instead of actually spending billions on whatever it is to try to actually fix the problem, it's better to just pay the fine and continue on business, you know?
Thinning of the ozone layer that kills the crops and starts forest fires and destroys the oceans. So we're not even going to add other factors. But the first thing that happens is weakening of what we call herd immunity. And it also increases the rate of mutation. So if you have someone in Japan or that's exposed and carries, say, a version of, say, the H5N1 or H1N1 or H7N9, the new Chinese or Asian superflu, that virus is going to be, because the host is under stress and has a free radical load, is going to mutate at an exponentially faster rate.
Right.
So we don't even need a bioweapon lab. The bioweapon lab are literally the carriers, the people, and the animals now exposed to these things. So you could have viruses emerge from the ocean. You could have viruses emerge that have the human receptor binding domain that are people, populations that are now exposed to radiation.
Radiation levels at one of Fukushima's nuclear...
Blood said it best. What can you do? Nothing, I guess. I can't do anything but what I'm doing right now, ringing the alarm bell. I mean, what else am I supposed to do? Hey, this is a problem. As fucked as humanity obviously is, anyone here consider just ending it? No.
Power stations is at its highest level since the tsunami-triggered meltdown nearly 6 years ago. Tokyo Electric Power, or TEPCO, is reporting that atmospheric readings inside Daiichi's reactor number 2 are as high as 530 sieverts an hour. To put that in perspective for you, a human that is exposed to a single dose of 10 sieverts would die in a couple of weeks. The levels being recorded here are 53 times that. TEPCO says it's possible melted fuel has leaked through the pressure vessel. The discovery is going to seriously challenge the efforts to safely
Okay, what did she just say? She said 10 sieverts can kill you within a couple of weeks. She said 53 times that is leaking out per hour. Per hour. Over 300,000 tons a day. A day. Since 2011. Think about that.
Dismantle this plant. Let's bring in Kevin Camps, radioactive waste watchdog from Beyond Nuclear. Kevin, 530 sieverts, it seems unfathomable. Can you explain what's likely going on here?
Well, you know, this catastrophe that's ongoing is nearly 6 years old at this point, and the fuel, the melted cores, have been missing in action. Tokyo Electric doesn't know where they are. The Japanese government doesn't know where they are. Nobody knows where they are. So what could have happened is these probes, these cameras, these robots, these radiation monitors that are being sent in by Tokyo Electric to try to figure out what's going on may have encountered the closest they've come yet to these melted cores. Mm-hmm. They may even have come upon melted fuel that's not underwater, and water serves as a radiation shielding. So if this is an open air area and there's no water, that could explain. But what you've got are melted reactor cores.
So you don't believe them, Jason? They say they don't possess the technology to fix it. That's what they claim. They developed a robot in order to get in there so we could figure out what the problem was. So you think things can be done, but will they? So perhaps they're lying to us and they do possess the technology to fix it, or what do you think?
And of course, human beings can't be in operating atomic reactors. They also can't be in this area where there's a meltdown. Mm-hmm. And there's also imagery. It looks like a melt through of a metal grate. And so it all stands to reason that the cores melted through the pressure vessels and down into the containment structure.
From what I was told at first, they were setting up this shit to be put inside missiles. It was all set up. This was weaponized isotopes that were supposed to double in strength every 70 years. They don't really have a shut-off life. That's why they say till the end of time. Till the end of time. Because this was designed to kill. Apparently, I don't know, man. I mean, it's all just covered in a bunch of shit, isn't it? It's hard to wipe off all the shit while you're fucking covering your nose because it stinks so bad just to see what's actually underneath. It's really friggin' hard. So, from what I understand, this was a military weapon that was being developed and supposed to be transferred into safe containers. When the tsunami rolled in, they had big-ass silos of this shit, and it just destroyed it all. And it just went everywhere, from what I understand. It literally dumped about 500 Hiroshima bombs, only there was no explosion. You understand what I'm saying? There's no explosion. All the radiation, all the damage is there, but there was no kaboom. You know, that was the only thing that was missing.
Right through that metal grating. And it's not unexpected, but we still don't know where the cores are. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there's claims that, oh, it's all contained, don't worry about it. There's actually, I mean, it's indisputable that there's a daily flow of radioactively contaminated groundwater into the ocean. The figure is something like 80,000 gallons per day of relatively low-level radioactive wastewater. And then you've got those storage tanks. We're talking 800,000 tons of highly radioactive water being stored in tanks because every day they pour 100 tons of water on each of these 3 melted down cores. And sometimes they lose those tanks. They leak, they overflow, so it's an ongoing catastrophe.
So you're saying that the contamination in this case could leak out, that that's a possibility?
There is some leakage on a daily basis, and then they try to capture as much as they can and contain it in these storage tanks, which they sometimes lose, whether during a typhoon or through human error. They've had overflows. So, you know, there are many shoes that could still drop at Fukushima Daiichi. One of the ones is the high-level radioactive waste storage pools that aren't even inside radiological containment. They don't have all of that spent nuclear fuel transferred to a safer location in a couple of the units still. So if something were to go wrong with that, those would be open-air releases of very high-level radioactivity. We're talking, you know, the prime minister at the time the catastrophe began, Khan, had a contingency plan to evacuate all of northeast Japan, up to 50 million people, and it was predominantly because of those storage pools. And we're still in that predicament if one of those pools were to go up in flames, as Tokyo plans to host the 2020 Olympics and bring in many millions of extra people into this already densely populated area. It's not a good idea.
So all eyes on them. I want to get back to this specific leak, though. How does this complicate the cleanup efforts there? And is it possible even to get something in there right now to examine what's going on? I heard that they had a robot that they wanted to put in there, a remote-controlled robot, but it only has a capacity to withhold 1,000 sieverts, so it would end up dying before it's in there 2 hours for good.
Right. State-of-the-art robotic technology. Japan is a world leader in robotics. Can only last so long because the electronics get fried by the gamma radiation and probably even neutron radiation that's in there. You know, that's the situation deep in there. They're already saying it'll take 40 years to so-called decommission this, but
that's better than 200 years. That's because that's what I was told.
The government said it was actually going to take twice as much money, nearly twice as much as they originally thought, to decommission that. Does this make matters even worse, this leak, or is this just kind of the situation that we expect at this point?
Well, it just shows how dire the situation is. And, you know, the figures of $150 billion to decommission. I've seen figures from a think tank in Japan, cited by Greenpeace Japan, up to 6...
Blood, you have no idea. You just took a mallet and hit it on the head. Fucking congratulations, Blood. Let me give you a standing ovation, bro. Standing ovation to Blood, Sweat, and Beers, because he hit the fucking nail on the head. The very thing that I was trying to explain. The very thing that I was trying to convey to people. Boom! Amazing the topics they focus on when they got shit like this. My hat fucking tips to you, sir. You hit the $1 million topic. That is exactly what I was trying to display here. And you couldn't have said it better. That's... boom. That's the biggest, that's the best topic you ever could have said. That's like if this was a Pee Wee Herman show, I'd be like, that's the word of the day. Ah! You know what I mean? That's it. Boom. You got it. You fucking got it, bro. You got it.
$100 billion. If you do full cost accounting, where is this high-level radioactive waste going to go? It's going to need a deep geologic repository. You have to build that and operate it. That costs $100 billion or more. So when you do full cost accounting, this catastrophe could cost hundreds of billions of dollars to recover from. We're just in the beginning.
And not to mention, I mean, if they're talking 40 years, that's a long time to try to figure it out, but leakage happening,
still better than
possible
200
contamination
years.
in our oceans, things that we all
No
need to
matter
be
how you
paying
look at
attention
it.
to.
It's an unprecedented catastrophe for the world's oceans.
Drop wifey off.
6 years later, we're still dealing with
All right,
serious
man.
effects of that. Kevin Kamst with Beyond Nuclear, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, welcome back. Hour number 2. More fun news. I hope you do keep an eye on that top center column at Rents for the latest news on Fukushima. There's a lot coming out, but it's really of no consequence. I try to pull the stories that really do matter to us, and they're indicators of what TEPCO is and is not doing. And TEPCO is not doing a lot more than it is doing. So we just found out today they dumped 700 million becquerels of tritium into the Pacific. No one was told about that, of course. More insects in Japan are showing up with obvious mutations from being exposed to radioactivity, whether they're eating other insects or eating leaves or greenery. and becoming genetically mutated that way when they breed and produce offspring? We don't know. Then we had the very interesting story about the toxic water in Toledo, Ohio from Lake Erie. Yoichi Shimatsu nailed that, and I think he's got it without question, that the Enrico Fermi nuclear plant is leaking into the lake to the extent that it made the water warmer, and the algae bloom was sufficient to cause a toxicity in the water. Why do I say that? Because the northern part of the lake is at record cold or nearly record cold for this time of the year. So there's no reason that that water should be warm unless something is warming it up.
Oh, well. What did you think of that one? I got some more shit to get into. Come on, let's go. You ready? You ready for the next one?
As you know, there's another holiday coming up just around the corner, which of course means that liberals are trying to ruin everyone's fun. Because liberals try to ruin everything. Universities across the country are issuing guidelines, making disciplinary threats, and offering counseling for the students who are offended by others' Halloween costumes. An elementary school in Massachusetts even canceled their Halloween costume parade to, quote, ensure that all students' individual differences are respected. What the hell does that mean, you may be wondering? Well, to those who are infected with the brain-eating virus known as liberalism, many of the costumes that the kids like to dress up as are considered to be cultural appropriation, which is a form of racism. For example, if a white kid wants to dress up as an Indian chief, that's considered to be offensive to Native Americans. Or if your daughter who's white wants to dress up as the Disney character Moana, who's Polynesian, that's considered to be offensive to the Pacific Islanders. Hey, that'd be like offensive to the culture, mon. That's correct. This kind of cultural appropriation's not gonna jive in the United States anymore. My husband Michael and I worked very hard to rid the country of this kind of racism. I'm not joking, by the way. This is how crazy the lunatic liberals have gotten. They're ruining Halloween for the kids. This is a post from Cosmopolitan. Hey, parents, maybe don't dress your kid up as Moana this Halloween. It's on you to teach your kid not to be racially
I challenge you this. Dress your kid up as Pocahontas. Dress your kid up as an Indian chief. Dress your kid up as Moana. Purposely be politically incorrect. Battle this dumbass political correct bullshit because it's bullshit. It's exactly what it is. I'm not gonna sit here and stand for victimhoods and people that want to pull race cards over ridiculous dumbass shit. This is exactly what I'm trying to say right here. Don't get it twisted. Just because a little kid wants to wear an Indian costume doesn't make him fucking racist. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. You see what I'm trying to say? What if somebody wants to dress up as fucking Tarzan? That don't make him racist.
By the way, this is how crazy the lunatic liberals have gotten. They're ruining Halloween for the kids. This is a post from Cosmopolitan. Hey, parents, maybe don't dress your kid up as Moana this Halloween. It's on you to teach your kid not to be racially insensitive. That's right, it's insensitive for the little kids to want to dress up as their favorite Disney character for Halloween now. In fact, last year Disney pulled one of the characters' costumes from that same film, the boy's costume, which the character is played by Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, but it was considered to be cultural appropriation, and so they pulled the Maui costume, who is a Polynesian demigod. Yes, look at this evil costume. How dare that child want to have fun on Halloween? A couple years ago, MTV, moronic television, led the social justice warrior charge against Halloween and put together this whole video of costumes that are unacceptable for the kids to wear. Liberals have a problem with almost every major holiday in America. Christmas is offensive.
All right, so we should get this list. We should get this list and make sure all of our kids dress up as one of the things on that list. Because these people are fucking morons.
To Muslims,
straight
Jews
up.
and atheists. Thanksgiving is offensive to Native Americans. Mother's Day is offensive to lesbian couples. Father's Day is offensive to the gays. It just goes on and on and on. And that's why we need to find a cure for this devastating disease. before it destroys the rest of this country and possibly the planet. Visit my online store and get your Liberalism Find a Cure t-shirts. Click the link in the description below or click on the shirt over here on the side of the screen. Your purchase helps keep this channel going. I'm Mark Dice. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here if you're new and check back every day for new
Liberalism
reports.
Find a Cure.
I'll see you tomorrow.
What do you think about that? You want to get more into that shit? I got more for you. You know I do. You know I do, bro.
Hey, line up! Line up! Everybody line up! We're about to race! Everybody line up! Shoulder to shoulder! Take off your backpacks! Basketball, line up! We're about to race! Hey, we are racing for a $100 bill. The winner of this race will take this. It's a $100 bill. Before I say go, I'm going to make a couple statements. If those statements apply to you, I want you to take 2 steps forward. If those statements don't apply to you, I want you to stay right where you're at. Take 2 steps forward if both of your parents are still married. Take 2 steps forward if you grew up with a father figure in the home. Take 2 steps forward if you had access to a private education. Take 2 steps forward if you had access to a free tutor growing up. Take 2 steps forward if you've never had to worry about your cell phone being shut off. Take 2 steps forward if you've never had to help mom or dad with the bills. Take 2 steps forward if it wasn't because of your athletic ability, you don't have to pay for college. Take 2 steps forward if you never wondered where your next meal was going to come from. I want you guys up here in the front just to turn around and look. Every statement I've made has nothing to do with anything any of you have done. Has nothing to do with decisions you've made. Everything I've said has nothing to do with what you've done. We all know these people up here have a better opportunity to win this $100. Does that mean these people back here can't race? No. We would be foolish to not realize we've been given more opportunity. We don't want to recognize that we've been given a head start. But the reality is we have. Now, there's no excuse. They still got to run their race. You still got to run your race. But whoever wins this $100, I think it'd be extremely foolish of you not to utilize that and learn more about somebody else's story. Because the reality is, if this was a fair race and everybody was back on that line, I guarantee you some of these black dudes would smoke all of you. And it's only because you have this big of a head start that you're possibly going to win this race called life. That is a picture of life, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing you've done has put you in the lead that you're in right now. When I say go, on your mark, get set, go! If you didn't learn anything from this activity, you're a fool.
What do you think about that?
You think HIV is...
What do you guys think about that? Because I am getting tired of the racism bullshit. I really am. Privilege is privilege. No matter how you started off, no matter what type of decisions were made, the parents that you have and the parents before them are the ones that design the privilege that you're designed to have. When you're in your mother's womb, you're not thinking to yourself that I'm going to be poor. You're not thinking to yourself like, I'm going to be depressed. I'm going to have PTSD. I'm going to, live without a dad. My parents are going to get divorced. I'm not going to get a government grant. I'm not going to be able to go to college. You're not thinking that when you're in your mother's belly. I'm just saying, man. How many of you had a better race? I know where I land. I know where I was in that race. I was right in the back. I never grew up with a dad. I never had a family. My parents got divorced very, very young age. I never went to college. Hell, I forgot I even had a high school diploma. I'd be right back there with the rest of them. That's why I say the racism really pisses me off. Because a lot of us have had the same opportunities, and a lot of us have not had the same opportunities. No matter what color your skin is, no matter where you came from, it depends on what kind of situation that you were brought up in. Did you have the nurturing and the caring of your parents? Did they set aside money for you to go to college with? Did you finish high school? Did you get married? Did you have kids? These are all things that are factoring in somebody's financial life and financial decisions. You see where I'm going with this? Race is a fucking blinding tool that they put in front of your face. When really, it's us, all of us, versus the bankers, versus the racial procreators that set up the divide with individual tactics through MTV, media, all these different sources that attack young people, that attack the liberal side. Hell, my grandfather was a pro-liberal. He was a Democrat. He'd be flipping in his goddamn grave if he saw what the hell was going on and how these types of things are being used against people. I'm definitely ashamed. I'm ashamed as some of my people, as some of my white people, as some of my black people that aren't seeing eye to eye, some of my Latino people that aren't seeing eye to eye with other people. We're all in the same boat. The fake news, lies, and media and bullshit, that's the water that's keeping our boat afloat. And if we keep trying to kick everyone out of the boat that we're all in, what the fuck are we going to do, man? Took control of my opportunities and made my own if I need be. I had no help. What I did for myself. That's what I'm saying, man. I was back there too. I was back on that line. I wouldn't have been taking no steps forward. Every question he asked, I wouldn't have been able to take a step forward. So it's frustrating to me when the race card gets pulled on me. It's very, very frustrating to me because, I had a lot of the same opportunities that a lot of the blacks, Latinos, Irish, Russians, Romanians, Muslims, Indians all had. You know what I mean? Hell, there's some blacks, Russians, and Indians that are doing better than some of the white people I know. I know better black people that are doing better than some of the fucking richer white people I know. I have more in common with a poor Latino or a poor black person than I ever would with a white guy who has money in his pocket. I'm just not that type of person. I had my opportunities to touch whatever you want to call it, the luxury life. I got photos on my shit. I've been around. I've done some things. And I realized that it was very plastic, very set up, very segregated. Classism is the real issue. Racism isn't the issue. Classism's the issue. And until we start realizing that as a whole, we're never going to get unified. Never. KRS-One said it best. You can't have justice on stolen land. And the way things are set up are against us. It's us versus the bankers. The fake news, the lies, the media, the politicians, all of that is the water Our boat is the boat. That's the bullshit boat through social media and other things of that little bit of facts here, the little bit of hints of truth there. We try to hold on to that and harness it because we don't know any better. We're all ignorant, every single one of us, me included. I don't know shit. You don't know shit. We only know what we're told. From the day we are born, we only know what we're told. So, I've said it before, I'll say it again. There's about 50 some odd different races on this planet Earth. You take all 50 races, you stick them in a room together, 3, 5 years old, what are they going to do? They're going to throw the ball around. They're going to play jump rope. They're going to play in the sand. They're going to have a good time. Because racism needs to be taught. Unfortunately, yes. Racism needs to be taught. If there was a bunch of kids there just having a good time, they'd be having a good time. And I just think it's really fucked up how they want to talk about how you can't dress up as an Indian, as Tarzan, how you can't dress up as Moana, you can't dress up as a Polynesian because it might offend Pacific Westerners. Well, what kind of bullshit is this? What kind of political fucking bullshit is that? Gets my fucking head boiling. Anyways, let's move on to another topic.
You think HIV is something to be laughed at, Cal?
Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here reporting for wearechange.org. And this week there's been a lot of media attention surrounding Donald Trump saying he will finally allow the infamous JFK assassination documents to be declassified. Now, there have been a number of times in the past that these documents were finally supposed to come to light. So a lot of people are treating this like a big deal. However, I gotta tell you folks, although I'm somewhat anticipating them, I kinda already know what's in them. The reason is that a document was made available to the public in the early 2000s, and it was even included in my 2010 documentary, Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined. So what is this document and why is it so important? Well, first of all, it's a document that's dated March 3rd, 1964. And it's a correspondence between the chief of the U.S. Secret Service, James Raleigh, receiving from John McCone, the director at the time of the Central Intelligence Agency. And really the only way to do this document justice is to read it in its entirety, taking pauses to point things out momentarily. In response to the request made by your office on the 24th of February 1964, a response to Lee Oswald's activities and assignments on behalf of this agency and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, aka on behalf of his involvement with the CIA and the FBI. There follows a narrative summary of the internal subversive actions of the Oswald subject. I recommend that unless the Commission makes a specific request for specific information contained herein, that this information not be volunteered. This agency has reason to assume that some junior Commission staff
Okay, hold on, because that's fancy language. Hold on one second.
Of his involvement with the CIA
I gotta hear that one more time.
and the recommend that unless the Commission makes a specific request for specific information contained herein, that this information not be volunteered.
Okay, that's important. That's important. Okay, what's that say? I recommend that unless commissions make specific, specific information, specific requests for specific information. So it's going to be a war of language. You have to ask the right questions in order to get the proper documents. That's basically what's going to be. It's going to be a war of language. This information will not be volunteered unless if they get the specific request. Remember that movie, what was it, I, Robot, where the doctor was like, that's not the right question, ask another question? That's what that shit reminds me of right there. That's the right question.
This agency has reason to assume that some junior Commission staff members may be potential sources of leaks to the news media
or to other agencies. Due to the highly sensitive nature of the enclosed material, it would certainly be in the national interest to withhold it at this time, unless there is, of course, a specific request made. It is my understanding that Mr. Hoover has certain sensitive information within his agency which he transferred to his own personal files for safekeeping. He concurs that no material should be voluntarily given to the Commission which might affect the status of field operatives or their safety.
Okay, so again, what does that say? Voluntary. So materials, prior materials, unless specifically asked for by the commissions, shall not be voluntarily given to the commission, which might affect the status or field operatives or their safety. So they're still going to protect the fucking criminals that did this shit. That's what that means.
Basically right here, folks, they're saying they're not going to share this information with the Warren Commission. He is particularly concerned about the DeBruy Memorandum, which Central Intelligence has obtained and which, I understand, you have obtained. It is imperative that this information, at least for the time, remain under wraps. So what is the DeBruy Memorandum? Well, the fact is that no such memorandum has been declassified to the public. But let me give you a little background on who wrote this memorandum. Warren C. DeBruy was born December 26, 1920. He served in New Orleans and L.A. and in Mexico City from 1943 to 1944 as a special employee in the FBI's counterintelligence role, including matters related to clandestine German microdot communications. He was instrumental in Dallas during the Kennedy assassination investigation, where he also directed the overnight analysis, composition, and assembling of the first report consisting of 800 plus pages. So folks, if all the documents relating to JFK are actually declassified, we should see this 800-page report by Warren C. DeBruy. DeBruy has since passed away in 2013 at the age of 92 years old. Continuing with the document, the Oswald subject was trained by this agency under the cover of the Office of Naval Intelligence for Soviet assignments. So right there, the director of the CIA is admitting that Oswald was trained by the CIA under the cover of ONI. During preliminary training in 1957, the subject was active in aerial reconnaissance of mainland China and maintained a security clearance up to the confidential level. His military records during this period are open.
Well, that certainly debunks the theory that Lee Harvey Oswald was in the wrong place at the wrong time. He's just a man, not yet a woman. Let's get back into this, because if I'm correct, he had training in 1957. The subject was active in aerial reconnaissance of the mainland China, maintained a security clearance up to the confidential level. His military records, all right, let's get on with this.
To your agency, and I have directed them to be forwarded to the Commission. The subject received additional indoctrination at our own Camp Peary site from September 8th to October 17th, 1958, and participated in a few relatively minor assignments until arrangements were made for his entry into the Soviet Union in September of 1959. While in the Soviet Union, he was on special assignment in the area of Minsk. It would not be advantageous at this time to divulge the specifics of that assignment. However, if you wish this information, it can be made available for your personal inspection within the confines of your own office. Or I can send it by courier on the condition that it not leave the custody of the courier. Now here comes a bombshell piece of this document. I am concerned that this information were in any way disclosed to the wrong persons, it would lead the media to erroneously claim this agency and perhaps others were directly involved in the Dallas action. While the persons involved were in the employ of this agency, as well as the Federal Bureau of Investigation, it is virtually impossible for this or any agency to maintain full 24-hour-a-day responsibility over its operatives. So right there, McCone is admitting that the assassination indeed involved operatives within both the Federal Bureau of Investigations and the Central Intelligence Agency. It's right there in black and white, folks. At the time of the Dallas action, the Oswald subject was only seldom in our employ after the Soviet assignment. We found him to be unreliable and emotionally unstable. He was of little use to us after his marriage, and de Bruy, from what I understand, concurred in this. He was provided with a few unimportant infiltration assignments and proved of little or no value. It is possible that Oswald, given his instability, might have been involved in some operation involving Hoffa, as noted in Special Agent in Charge Bertram's report to your agency dated 1364. Mr. Hoover advises that his agency is trying to determine whether Hoffa might have been involved laterally or vertically with the Dallas assassination. I have advised that I would be interested in seeing the results of that investigation. In Special Agent in Charge Bertram's 1364 report are basically correct. His agency has advised Deputy Sweet against any further unauthorized statements to the news media which might adversely affect the investigation. Mr. Hoover advises he has no knowledge of how Deputy Sweet obtained his information, and there is no record of the agency distributing any such information to Sweat or any other member of the Dallas Sheriff's Office. It is regrettable that this information has come to the attention of the news media, but I am sure Mr. Hoover will be able to clarify the situation. Speculation within this agency, and this is only speculation at this point, is that Oswald subject may have become unstable following surgery April 1st, 1961 in the Minsk hospital. He may have been chemically or electronically controlled, a sleeper agent. The subject spent 11 days hospitalized for a minor ailment, which should have required no more than 3 days hospitalization at most. 6 days after his release, he met Marina Pruskova. This agency is particularly interested in her intelligence background, and I have requested a report from our Soviet embassy contact. So here, McCone actually talks about Oswald possibly being under mind control, whether or not it's this rogue element in the FBI and the CIA that he says carried out the attack, or whether it's Russian agents is really unclear. But it's pretty stunning that this is in the actual documentation between the director of the CIA and the head of the Secret Service. After his return to the U.S., Oswald worked in New Orleans through the Anti-Communist League of the Caribbean and Friends Democratic Cuba. His case officer was Special Agent in Charge Guy Bannister from the Chicago F131 office. He was transferred from his assignments thereafter. He was arrested and fined stemming from an incident of his distribution of pamphlets for the Fair Play for Cuba Committee. While our files show no further assignments or contact, I am requesting a check on the subject from our New Orleans and Fort Worth offices. Please direct any further communication on this matter to my personal attention so that your request will be expedited, or feel free to call me anytime. My office is always available to you. John McCone. So there you have it, folks. A bombshell document that shows Oswald was trained by the CIA, worked with the FBI, that he admits, the director of the CIA at the time admits that it was carried out by rogue elements of both agencies, and he even alludes to MK Ultra style attacks by Oswald as a possibility. So again, be on the lookout, and let's see if Thursday we get to see this 800-page memorandum by the Special Agent in Charge in the beginning, de Bruy. As always, if you like this video, please share it on social media. Go to wearechange.org. Follow me on Twitter at Jason Burmis, and if you can...
So there's the JFK files, bros. What did you guys think of that? All right, now, if you're Kekistanian like me and you praise Pepe the Frog, then this announcement will make sense to you. And if you don't, then you're going to be scratching your head on this next one. Where'd it go?
My fellow ethnic Kyrgyzstanis, this is Big Man Tyrone, Supreme President of Kyrgyzstan, here to brief you on a special mission for all battle-ready meme warriors. As you well know, the United States of America has long been a great friend and ally to the Kyrgyzstani people. This relationship has always strengthened with the ascendancy of the God Emperor Donald Trump, fulfilling the long-held meme magical prophecies foretold by our ancient Akkadian friend Sargon the Great and his portly British reincarnation here on YouTube. These events are proof that the destinies of the free world and Kyrgyzstan are metaphysically interwoven. We must take this revelation to heart as we continue the struggle to free our ancient homeland from Nomi oppression. Just as it was foretold that the meme magic would carry our people to victory in the great and holy meme war of 2016, so too was it known that this victory would bring forth vast hordes of the walking brain dead, so triggered by the God Emperor's rising, that they would unleash a chorus of artistic shrieking so loud as to pierce the very heavens themselves. Once again, the prophets of Paul were proven right, and so the rivers overflowed with the salty tears of a million lefties nourishing our meme fields with the most bountiful harvest in living memory. Praise Kek. Speaking of salty tears, I'm sure you all remember this past August when a handful of Bostonian patriots faced down massive hordes of shrieking SJW happies. Hashtag 45K triggered.
We've been triggering them lately, haven't we?
But this was not the end. The patriotic Bostonians vowed to return and free the birthplace of America for commie oppression. We have now learned that this coming November 18th is when they once again make their stand on green fields of Boston Common. They have sworn to show Antifa and all commie cocks that they will not be deterred or scared in any way. Brothers and sisters, we must not let our American friends stand alone. So now, brave sons of Pepe, jobs be upon him.
Kyrgyzstan.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to spread this rallying call to the farthest corners of the internet. We must stand with our American allies against the cocked and commie hordes. We must meme this rally into being the greatest and most epic grandstand in the history of meme warfare. Through our Kyrgyzstani meme magic, we will galvanize the spirit of the Holy Frog and once again bring glorious victory to ourselves and our friends. Freedom-loving American patriots are already flocking to Boston to stand shoulder to shoulder with their countrymen, veterans, 3%ers, Oath Keepers, Proud Boys, and many more. We must also do our part. I'm hereby commanding all available Kyrgyzstani freedom troopers to deploy on Boston Common on November 18th. I challenge you all to unleash your maximum creative energy for the success of this mission. Our beating must be subtle, precise, and deployed smartly to maximize our power levels. Have your cameras ready, for there will be extra attendees to the one who gets the best video of triggered lefty cocks. Remember, to those of you who join us on the ground, hold your spurging until you see the whites of their eyes. To those of you providing critical social media and meme support, you must unleash fire and fury across all platforms, unrelenting, starting right now until the climax of our operation on November 18th. Let this be an official declaration of meme jihad.
Does that make sense to you? What he's trying to say is Antifa plans on attacking November 18th in the Boston Commons. Boston Commons. So if you want to stand with the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys, anybody that loves America and loves freedom, he's basically challenging you to put your creativity, put your Photoshop to work, put your memes to work, put your videos to work, and really, really, let's trigger those lefties. Let's trigger those bastards. Let's get them all riled up. Because when this shit goes down, it's going to go down hard. You guys ready for that? Are you ready to be a proud Kekistanian? Or are you going to be a lefty cock? The choice is yours. Alright, now, who the fuck is Kekistan? Well, let me show you. Are you ready for this?
Now, you've been embattled in this conflict for quite a long time, and I've got to imagine that the way you look at the world, the way you see things many, many steps ahead, do you see any sort of a logical conclusion to this process? Do you see any light at the end of the tunnel, or do you see an impossible to avoid conflict? Like, what do you see when you look at this whole thing long term?
Well, I would say I can't look at it long term. And the reason for that is that, and this is why I get a kick out of all the Kekistan boys. You know, I do believe that we're in a period of chaos.
What's a Kekistan?
Kek? Oh, Kek is a mythological country that's ruled by chaos, by the god Kek, who's a frog, as it turns out.
I don't know about this.
Oh, well, you need to look them up. That's a big internet thing, Kekistan.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Big internet thing? All I know about the frog.
Not Antifa. We're against Antifa. We're here to make fun of both political sides and point out the irony and the double standards.
Yeah, he killed him off, but good luck, he didn't.
All right, so
that's stupid.
That's why I'm a Trump supporter wearing a Hillary shirt. Because it's funny. Because I like triggering people. Because I like to stand in the face of the challenge.
As a meme.
These people don't get it. They don't understand that they're being played against each
So
other.
they use this symbol, K-E-K.
And I stand for freedom.
And the
I stand for the proud.
K-E-K in Korean means LOL. And so it was just this little joke. Kek, K-E-K. Well, then somebody found out these were people who were using Pepe, remember, to frog. Then people found out that Kek was an Egyptian god. And he was a frog. And he was between categories. Sort of like a transsexual, by the way. He was between categories. And so now they have this Republic of Kek, and it's ruled by this Egyptian god, whose name is Kek, who's a frog.
Hold on, go back. Don't keep changing this. Jamie's doing this in the background while you're talking, but look at this. There's a frog with a Make America Great Again hat, and he's got like a tombstone. It says, "Those who served in the meme war, 2015 and 2016. We are the gods of the great meme war. We are the shit posters. The Legion of Kek. We are the internet. The death of the normies. Lulz and Kek. We are one." What the fuck is going on?
That is the question. And that's the question you asked me. And my answer was, I don't know.
Well, I do. There's an internet subculture known as Kekistan. It's a makeup of different types of internet subculture groups like 4chan, Anonymous, Blue Hat, White Hat types of hackers. These people are known as weaponized autism, things like that. And like what they did to Shia LaBeouf is a perfect example of shitposting and the type of breaking up your little social utopia, your safe space, your whatever, your snowflake utopia, with just raining down the screaming American eagle known as fucking freedom. You know what I'm saying? And we like to get in the faces of the snowflakes. We like to get in the faces of those who try to cultural appropriate and be politically correct and things like that. What they find politically correct, we like to make fun of. So it could be anything. It could be a brown paper bag, which it has been. Could be anything from milk to Indian costumes to anything. You know, a cowboy costume. Like I said, brown paper bag, milk, whatever it is. Whatever they say is racist and try to use against us, we take it and flip it into satire and use it against them as humor and irony. And then we point out the double standard that they're the racist ones looking through the racist spectacles. Because anybody that goes out of the way looking for racism is obviously racist, right? I mean, there's no question about that. So, they say they don't know going on. Look at his smug-ass smile. This bitch knows what goes on. Matter of fact, I can prove that he knows what's going on. Hold on a second. I'll get down to the bottom of it. 1 second. 1 second.
We're in a period of chaos.
Hello, freak bitches.
Talk about this in much detail because it's really complicated, but the anti-left spectrum, let's say, is very confused, and it could easily tilt very rapidly into the hard right anti-left, which is the danger that you were describing. And partly what I'm hoping is that I can talk to people who might conceivably be on that developmental path.
Yeah, I'm against the alt-right as well because it's a very confusing spectrum in order to be in the center. That's why as a Kekistanian, you're like not associated with any of that. So you can step back and be like, ha 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 ha. But really, you're also making facts and you're making points along the way that make a lot of sense to a lot of people, no matter where you sit in the political spectrum. That's why I love Jordan Peterson. That's why I love Joe Rogan, because they're very apolitical and they make sense on both sides, whether you're pro-black, whether you're pro-white, whether you're multiculturalism, the mixing pot, whether you're middle class, upper class. These guys make points that make a lot of sense no matter who you are. That's what I enjoy. That's a proud statement of logic, that we can share logic on critical thinking or critical grounds. That's what's awesome. You don't have to have $1 billion in your pocket to make a good point to a rich person. Do you? I don't think so.
Pathway, because they're tired of being accused of implicit racism, let's say, and say, look, you can be anti-radical left without falling all the way into the far right, and here's how you might do it. But that means I have to talk to them, and then if I talk to them, that means I risk association with them, and that risks being tainted. It's a very tricky line to walk.
Well, it's also one of the big problems with this hard stance of the left, of the hard left, like this Pepe the Frog thing. Like that anybody, I mean, one of the things that I tweeted was some guy that called me, and you just admitted you're a Nazi because I posted a meme that someone had created of me as Pepe the Frog. And apparently there's Pepe the Frog of everybody. And so this guy was like, well, you just admitted you're a Nazi. And I'm like, see, this is a part of the problem. And this creates a massive blowback. People are getting angry because that frog, for the most part, is used humorously. And
yeah, actually, you used the phrase defensive humor when
Yes.
you were talking. And it really is. And I think, I mean, this is, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Joe, but
no, please do.
There's something about the idea that the effectiveness of this meme is that it tangles people with no sense of humor in knots.
And that's a huge part of why those things are generated.
That's why
it's
they like it.
That's exactly right.
They
it's
love it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fearing that I'm saying something about this frog and that there's going to be something that's going to emerge that I should know about, that somehow I'm admitting something. But all I'm saying is what I see is a lot of people using it to taunt people who can't figure out.
Yes, I think that's the vast majority of it. I do believe that. And I think the same thing about the Kekistani types, is that that's almost all humor.
Yeah, and there's a massive problem with pushing back against that and calling those people Nazis and racists, and especially when they're just using humor, and especially when it's very clear if you look at all the memes online, and I went thoroughly through Google to find them. There are some abhorrent ones. There are some horrible ones. There are some ones that are with Nazi uniforms. There's some anti-Jew ones. There's some horrific ones. Most of them are not that. Most of them. The vast majority of them are humorous. And again, these people are not coordinating. So if one person decides to make a Mickey Mouse racist meme, which, by the way, a lot of the early Mickey Mouse cartoons, you could just take a screenshot, and they're fucking tremendously racist, right? Because dealing with the sign of the times. I mean, images of black people that were extremely cartoonish, you know, giant lips, black faces, the whole deal, horribly racist. You could say Mickey Mouse is fucking racist. Don't go to Disneyland. No one's saying that, right? But they could. Up, brother? And this is a slippery slope.
Trying to show people who Pepe the Frog is, what Kakistanian is.
You know, first they came for Pepe, and I did.
And who's going to be battling this whole November bullshit? You know, because it goes back to Shia LaBeouf. If you want to know some of the people that are going to be on the fighting podium on America's side, on my side, on the red, white, and blue side, let's go back to Shia LaBeouf. This motherfucker here. And take y'all to school right now on what it is that my side is. Well, it's a very confusing side, but I get it. I know what's going on.
Hello, freak bitches. This part of what I like about the internet is, like, did you read, or did you listen, rather, to the Radio Lab podcast on Shia LaBeouf? LaBeouf?
No, I didn't.
It's fucking great. I sent it to Jamie. It's fucking great. What is it called again? Twitter Truth Trolls?
Yeah, you have to find it because they took it down.
How did they take it down? I just got it off.
You had it already downloaded on your phone because you auto-download Radio Lab podcast. So when I went to go find it, I had to go search for it. I sent you that link. They had taken it down the next day or something.
What?
Because people thought that they were endorsing that.
Trolling.
Yeah, exactly.
They should be endorsing it. It was awesome. Yeah. What the 4chan guys did was fucking amazing. This is what they did. Shia LaBeouf.
Yes.
Did I say his name? Whatever that fucking crazy asshole's name. He was doing some weird art piece where he like stood around with a bunch of other people and was like, "He will not divide us. He will not divide us." They would all say that, and then all these 4chan people found out about it, so they showed up and started yelling a bunch of fucking Trump shit.
It's still up live right now.
The camera is still
after that whole thing ended, they ended up like selling this to another company or art people, and they're handling all of it now. So Shia's name's not attached to it.
Okay, so this "he will not divide us" thing, right? He would go to these places and say, "He will not divide us. He will not divide us," and people would show up, and they would show up with like Kekistan shirts on with Pepe the Frog. They would wear Make America Great Again hats on, and they weren't even necessarily Trump supporters. They were just people trying to have fun, right? They're trying to fuck with people, right? So what they did was Shia LaBeouf put up a flag in the middle of nowhere that said "He will not divide us," and then had a live stream where you could go and look at the flag as it's waving in the breeze, right? They found the fucking flag. They found out where it was. And the way they found it was genius. And it's all detailed in this Radio Lab. The fact they took it down is actually making me mad.
Why would they?
Because what these guys did was awesome. Right? First of all, it was brilliant. They found social media posts that showed that people had met Shia LaBeouf in some place. Is that how you say his fucking name? LaBeouf. They found out that they had met him in some weird place in Tennessee. So they triangulated where he would be, right? So then what they did was they went around. They had one of their members go around with a car and beep the horn so they could hear the horn on the camera. And once they heard the horn on camera, then they knew he was there, or then they knew the flag was there. So then they found out where it is by stars. They looked at the fucking stars and they figured out where the area is. Because when it's nighttime, you can see the stars on the live feed, and they figured out what constellation it was. They went to the fucking flag, took it down, put a Make America Great Again hat on and a Pepe the Frog thing up there, and the guy walks up to the camera and goes, "Fuck Shia LaBeouf." I love it. And that's the end of it.
So great.
The fact that Radio Lab took that down, that's depressing.
Yeah.
Why did they do that? Did they not understand what's happening here?
Here's one of the ways how they did it. So, like, when he was moving around, they found the log cabin he was in, and they're like, let's look for rental cabins that match the wood pattern.
There are around 3,000 rental caverns in Lapland. We just need to match the wood patterns. Easy enough.
And then they just spend time doing it and shit like
These
this.
guys are animals. Yeah. I fucking love this. Mm-hmm. I don't understand why they were mad.
Here's the how they did it too.
But this is what I don't understand. I don't understand why Radiolab would take that down. Why don't you Google that? Why did Radiolab take down the Twitter truth or truth trolls, whatever the fuck it was?
So you listen to radio? I've never listened to Radiolab.
Love it.
What is it?
It's an amazing podcast. It's really good.
Like a news or?
It's one of my favorite podcasts. They have all kinds of crazy shit on. I mean, they have stuff on all sorts of different. Radiolab removes its Truth Trolls episode from podcast feed.
Yeah, I was trying to find the actual.
Does it say why?
Yeah, they posted a reason why, and this isn't there. Hold on a second.
But it's saying that they removed it, right?
That was someone wrote an article.
Well, obviously they removed it. Editorial. Radiolab has decided to take down this episode. Some listeners called us out saying that in telling the Capture the Flag story in the way that we did, we essentially condone some pretty despicable ideology and behavior. Oh, come on. To all the listeners who felt that way and everyone else, please know that we hear you and that we take these criticisms to heart. I feel awful that the things we said could be interpreted that way. That's on us. It was certainly not our intention, and we apologize. Come on, folks. You guys are missing the humor of this. These aren't despicable people. They are saying things that are ridiculous because it's funny. Like, there's a lot of people that...
Now I'm trying to understand, right? Because you're seeing a culture. Now, this is happening on the internet. Now, we're battling this on a sub-level. A lot of people aren't realizing that this is going on. Trust me, it is. People are being fucked with on a high dose. On a very high dose. Now, these Antifa websites, where they operate with communism, where they congregate and things like that, and they talk about communism and things like that, how to spread it, how to get their propaganda across like that. These types of people are fucking with them. Let them do it. Let them do it. You know what I'm trying to say? Anybody that is sick in the head with liberalism needs to get fucked with. How else are you supposed to break them out of the trance? I mean, I'm just saying.
That say a lot of fucked up shit online. Do they actually mean this stuff, or are they saying it because they are anonymous and because it's fun to say fucked up things online that you're not supposed to say? I would say the latter. I think there's a bunch of people that are really legitimately fucked up online. There's a bunch of other people that think it's fun because they're stuck at some goddamn soul-sucking job in some fucking cubicle somewhere, and they have access to the internet. And so they go on message boards and they fuck around and they troll this asshole. Shia LaBeouf is a dum-dum, all right? He's a fucking plagiarist. I mean, this guy's been busted for plagiarizing like giant chunks of other people's work, right? Like, where did he get busted for plagiarizing?
He's in jail every couple weeks for being an asshole and being drunk and like.
Well, he's a silly fool.
Yeah.
I think that gig, being a fucking movie star, is insane. I think it's insanely pressure filled. It's way harder than what we do in terms of like dealing with all the people that like you and managing all the relationships and brief history of Shia LaBeouf copying the work of others.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a ton of shit.
Okay.
What does it say? He played.
Now we're just talking about how shitty Shia LaBeouf is. I'm trying to talk about something else. I'm trying to talk about an internet subculture that is literally designing shit like this, and it's triggering the absolute fuck out of people. Whenever you talk about Make America Great Again, or any type of Donald Trump, Pepe the Frog memes, or any type of fucking shit like that, it triggers the fucking shit out of these people. And now they're talking about what you can and can't wear as a Halloween costume. MTV told you how to culturally appropriate your children, to not wear cowboys, to not wear Indians, to not dress up as Tarzan, to not dress up as a Polynesian, to not dress up as a Moana. Try to teach your kids about what racism is. Hey, teach your kids racism. You shouldn't do this because it might offend someone. Oh, God forbid if your kid wants to have fun during Halloween. Absolutely fucking mental retardation when it comes to people that get offended over racist bullshit, because that's what it is. It's absolute bullshit, manufactured, set up, bought and paid for by rich white guys that set things up through the media, through MTV, through the movies, through even video games. Hell, I gotta deal with social justice bullshit in my fucking video games nowadays. I'm so glad that South Park is triggering These little snowflakes. Oh, does it hurt your feelings? Oh, when you slide down the difficulty bar to white, the game's easy. It's funny. When you put the fucking difficulty bar up to black, the game's very difficult. It's funny. Oh, but it's triggering the snowflakes. Oh. 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 That's just too bad, isn't it? Oh. Poor little snowflakes. Poor, poor, poor little snowflakes. I mean, can you believe this shit? Riffs and Spliffs, what up? I'm scared was gonna wear a white sheet. Yeah, you might not want to do that. You might not want to do that because now racism is gonna be in our Halloween now. So now we gotta deal with Halloween, racist Halloween. Racist Halloween. Well, Halloween's racist. That's it. I'm finished. My favorite holiday has now been ruined. This is the last one I had left. It was the last one. It was the last holiday I actually gave a shit about. Now it's ruined. It's ruined.
Black Americans are some of the world's most famous personalities. Black Americans are some of the world's richest people. It was a black American, Colin Powell, who was the commander of the world's mightiest military. Now, in 1865, neither a slave nor a slave owner would have believed these kind of gains would be possible in just over 100 years, if ever. Now, that speaks very well of the intestinal fortitude of the people, but just as important, it speaks very well of a nation in which these gains are possible. That is, those gains would not have been possible anywhere else on the face of this earth except the United States of America.
Now, in 21st century America, where we just had 8 years of a black president, we have so many social and economic programs that are set up based off of racial double standards to benefit blacks. Are we really at a point where a student can go to one of the top colleges in the country and say that we need an exclusive safe space to talk to other black people? That doesn't make sense to me, but this is what they're demanding.
I would say progress in general among blacks. I think blacks are the only oppressed people in history that have accomplished so much over some of the highest barriers in such a short period of time. And that is, if you could resurrect slaves, they would find that the grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren, granddaughters are mayors of the world's largest cities.
The debate about how much racism there is in America, and specifically the disparity between the races, is just as fierce as ever. That's okay with me. Discrimination still exists. Let's deal with it openly and honestly. Unfortunately, that's very hard to do. One reason I've discovered is that many people feel that they have to treat blacks with kid gloves. They think this is noble, enlightened, progressive. It's not. It's demeaning and condescending. In fact, it's racist.
Fucking goddamn right.
It's an underlying mindset that progressives know that they can insult, belittle, demean people of color who are conservative, and these are the ones who say, we're standing up for civil rights, we're fighting for you, where they have the most despicable displays of racism.
In an anthropology class, my professor decided to discuss the shooting of Michael Brown, a black teenager, by a white police officer in Ferguson, Missouri. Before I tell you what transpired, I need to tell you something about this professor. First of all, I like her very much. She's interesting and engaging, but more importantly, she took a non-PC approach to the class, which I found refreshing. She encouraged us to study the data dispassionately and draw our conclusions from that. But when the subject of Ferguson came up, all this objectivity went out the window. When a classmate said, following the debate over the details of the case, that the facts ultimately don't matter, my professor agreed. All that matters, this classmate added, is that a black boy was killed by a white cop. Another example of racism in a racist society, pure and simple. So therefore, riots that followed the grand jury decision not to indict the officer were the legitimate reactions of people who just couldn't take it anymore. And that's when I knew that what I was really hearing was not an expression of compassion and understanding, but something else. Rioting and looting are acceptable forms of behavior? Why? Because the rioters and looters have no other options? Really? In free democratic America you have no other options? Does this apply to all ethnic groups? Hispanics? Southeast Asians? Pacific Islanders? Of course not. But we, the enlightened ones, are ready with a pre-packaged list of excuses when blacks riot and loot. Worse, when it comes to judging black behavior, even facts don't matter. All that matters is the skin color of the teenager and the skin color of the cop.
You know, if you're conservative, you're of color, oh, you're not authentically black. Come on, Ron, you're acting white. It's not going to exercise.
You're an Uncle Tom if you're a black conservative. That's what they'll call you.
Democrats, you're supporting Obama. So if apparently I'm not down for the struggle. And the media not only perpetuates this, but they give these racists a pass.
If a white cop kills a white kid, the facts matter. If a black cop kills a black kid, the facts matter. If a black cop kills a white kid, the facts matter. And if a white cop kills a black kid, the facts matter. To suggest anything else is to perpetuate discrimination, the very thing that those who espouse social justice claim to want to end. Anyone, whether white or any other color, who excuses blacks for bad behavior just because they are black obviously doesn't consider blacks their equal. Rather, they view blacks, in effect, as children who are unable to adhere to the standards to which every other group is held. Think carefully about that. The only difference between this view and that of white supremacists is that white supremacists are honest and open. In their view, blacks are inferior to whites, period. But those who condescend to blacks cloak themselves in self-righteousness, so somehow that makes it okay. The bad behavior happens, a riot in Ferguson, and they nod knowingly. They couldn't take it anymore. Who can blame them?
Only 40% of black kids live in two-parent families. Now, back in 1925 in Harlem, 85% of black kids lived in two-parent families. In 1870 and 1880 in cities like Cleveland, Detroit, and Philadelphia, you found numbers like 70 to 85% of black kids living in two-parent families. Now, how do you explain that? Can you say that there was not as much racial discrimination in the United States in the late 1800s or the early 1900s? No, that doesn't cut water. The discrimination just plain cannot explain. It cannot explain the high crime rates, which are devastating to the black community.
I'll take the white supremacists any day. First, there are very few of them, and they have no power. Second, I can easily prove them wrong. But how do I shake off the condescenders, the patronizers? There are a lot of them, they have a lot of power, and they think they mean well. How do I convince them that as a black human being, I want to be, I must be, judged by the same standards as everybody else? So how about this for a change? Treat blacks equally, always, in every way. Not differently, not better, not worse. Not like we're demons, not like we're angels. Is that so hard to do?
It might not be a surprise to many of you that over the last several years,
too much truth coming out at once. I'm sorry, that's
slowly becoming resegregated along lines of race, and people are hiding behind the notion of a safe space to justify increased racial segregation on college campuses. If you guys go to, I think the website is demands.org, you can see the different colleges and universities across the country over the last 5 to 6, 7 years, the student groups that are making demands of college administrators and faculty and staff along racial lines. And if you do a little bit more research, you can see where some of these administrators have given in to these demands. Now, despite segregation being outlawed more than 50 years ago, some are aggressively trying to bring it back, particularly on college campuses, as I said. Confusingly, the most hyperactive voices that are advocating for the process of resegregation along racial lines are the actual beneficiaries of desegregation, which are black Americans. And they're the very group that was hurt most by racial segregation for the most part of the 20th century. Over the last couple of years...
Let me just do a break-off on segregation. Now, I experienced segregation in my own race. White people segregated me. And my wife. Tell them, babe. That shit happened to us. We got segregated against. when we went down to Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when we went down to Texas, we were segregated against by fucking white people. It really doesn't matter. That's why I'm trying to say classism is the true issue in society. That's just what I think. Maybe I'm wrong. But I can philosophize, and it's a start. Maybe some of you will listen, and that's great. Maybe some of you will disagree. We love you, Rye Bread. Well, thank you. Thank you. But I think classism is the true issue because I signed up with a company. Most of you know because I've already said it. It was Ambit. And it was a great company. The ideology of the company is that they were going to thrive off the regulation of energy. Like I was telling you before, there's only 3 companies on Earth that generate energy. So what does that mean? That means they were partnered up with Shell. Now, when the government stepped in and broke up the monopoly, Jif peanut butter, hey, I like honey extra chunky nut Jif peanut butter, value size. Me too. So, now when you get into a lot of this stuff, segregation is a real big issue. Because when I got there, it was set up in about, what was it, like 4 or 5 different setups? If you were a part of the national consultants, or what was it, honey? The senior? No. Was it senior consultant? National.
It went regional,
executive.
Senior, executive, and senior.
If you were part of the national in the executive branch, then you got your own food, your own like seating line. Same thing with the seniors and some of the other people that were moving their way up to executive. They got their own seating, their own food, their own setup, things like that. It was pretty intense. And then anybody else that was a marketing consultant or a regional consultant got basically fed to the fucking wolves. And we got fed to the inflation. They made money off us like you wouldn't believe. And that right there is exactly how we're being used. It's just on a very smaller scale. But I mean, you apply that to how the world is set up in business, that's exactly it right there. It doesn't matter what your skin color is, it matters where you are. It matters what class you have, what kind of opportunities you were fed along the way. So what am I trying to say? We had to pay the inflation. Just like in life, we got to pay the inflation. Any one of those that are getting that type of mentality in life, where they're part of the 1%, whatever they dubbed themselves as, the ghetto life, thug life, whatever it is. That hard, rough, rugged, and raw life. You know what I'm saying? I lived that. I was in that. I grew up in the north end of Hartford. It's not as bad as New York. It's not as bad as, say, Chicago. It's not as bad as, say, maybe Detroit. You know what I'm saying? But, I mean, it had its hardships for any point of the reason. Now, a lot of people right here would get triggered because I'm challenging street credit. See, now, that's where I can't stand it. Because it has nothing to do with where you were born, per se. It has everything to do with what kind of opportunities was set up. That's privilege. Doesn't matter whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're Hispanic. That's privilege. Asian, if you really want to attack race, you should attack Asians. They're the ones that, I mean, if statistically, Asians are the ones that make the most money in America, but I don't see any fucking tiki torches being carried against Asians. It's just a bunch of fucking bullshit. That's why I'm over here making fun of it. You know what I'm saying? I'm over here just dancing like this. You know what I'm saying? I'm just over here making fun of it. Like, this shit is fucking stupid. Absolutely stupid.
For several years, actually, black college students have been protesting alleged incidents of oppression, racial intimidation, racial discrimination by white administrators and students alike. One of the consensus cures for this ongoing perceived racial prejudice is to demand racially specific so-called safe spaces where only racial minorities, specifically blacks, can assemble, socialize, and reinforce their politicized identity without the fear of social and racial reprisals.
Can I interject right there? Because that is exactly what we were seeing on the college campuses. Remember after Trump fucking won and they needed Play-Doh and Rubik's Cubes and safe spaces and coloring books and shit? Are you fucking serious? And they were booting out different races that were indifferent from their races. That, my friend, is called an echo chamber. Don't ever get caught up in one of those, because if you get caught, and that's why I'm constantly looking up people that have a different opinion than the one that I have, so that way I can grow my opinion. Because if you get stuck inside of an echo chamber, then your own opinions are going to reverberate off the walls, and then if you're only hanging out with people that only agree with you, then you're never going to grow. You're never going to be challenged and criticized. You need to be criticized in order to grow. It has to happen. You got to be smacked with the light every once in a while in order to see what's underneath your darkness. Am I correct?
And it's done specifically to exclude whites. It's interesting, they want to do this from a racial aspect to reinforce a sense of racial solidarity, but what they're also doing is, it's a racist proposition because they're excluding white people only on the base of race.
I would argue that the discrimination, the problems that black people face today, for the most part, have very, very little to do with the heritage of slavery, with the heritage of discrimination in our country. You know, in 1925 in Harlem, 85% of black kids lived in two-parent families. Today in Harlem, maybe you'll find 30% if you're lucky. Now, this great change can't be attributed to slavery, it can't be attributed to racial discrimination, and that is, I think that too much of our focus is on discrimination and the heritage of slavery, as opposed to how are we going to cope with the immediate problems that we face in our communities.
And they only want to talk about the last 400 or 500 years of slavery, which is just as bad as any other time. But, you know, what about Attila the Huns? Did that have anything to do with racism if there was no such thing? I'm just saying. There's been a lot of battles throughout the history of our existence, and it wasn't all based around black racism. I just get really pissed off. What about the Holocaust? That was fucking back in the 40s. Do you see a bunch of Jews going around demanding reparations? No. No, you don't.
King's definition, who is an expert, obviously, on violence. Dr. King, who I think we all both respect here, King's argument was that racism, his definition was this: racism equals prejudice plus power. Racism is defined as prejudice plus power. You didn't buy that argument? You didn't buy that definition? Because the point is, if racism equals prejudice plus power, black folk who are powerless by and large, who can be prejudiced but don't have the power to be racist.
That is one of the most idiotic things I've ever heard.
Calling King an idiot?
When Reginald Denny...
Are you calling King an idiot?
When Reginald Denny was on the ground, and Damian Football Williams had a brick in his hand and was trying to kill him, did Reginald Denny face somebody who had power? I think so. What an absurd thing to say. You don't have power, therefore you can't be a bigot. When State Senator Diane Watson blasted Warren Carterley, the black man who championed the cause of eliminating affirmative action, she said to him, because he's married to a white woman, let me tell you something. The reason you're supporting the abolition of affirmative action is because you have no ethnic pride. You're married to a white woman. You want to be white. Now, was she racist because she didn't have power? Was she not racist because she didn't have power? It doesn't make any sense. Black people can be racist. It doesn't matter whether you have power or whether you don't have power.
How much political progress have blacks made in America since the death of Dr. Martin Luther King?
Well, in terms of elective offices, there's been significant political power, political progress. But very often, more often than not, that political power has not been translated into the things that blacks need, like better schools, more safer communities. You know, some of the cities in our country whose mayors and city councilmen are predominantly black, they're some of our cities with the major problems. Now, I personally don't think that political power in and of itself is a solution to the problems.
Let me ask you this. Do you at least see, I'm not talking about you in particular, but people like you who are black, who have a more conservative bent on radio, do you see at least the argument that many African Americans who are to the left ideologically, the argument they make is that when you tune into Larry Elder, when you tune into Ken Hamlin, when you tune into Armstrong Williams, when you tune into whomever, the majority of what you hear, and I've listened to your show for many, many years in LA, we used to work together, the majority of what you hear, more often than not, is Larry and others being more challenging of black folk than white folk. Do you at least see that and then understand how black folk then have an issue with Larry Elder?
Well, Tavis, I can't account for Hamlin or for Armstrong. I can't speak for them.
But you're anti.
I can speak for me.
Right.
And here's what I try to do on my show. This obsession with racism diverts time, effort, and energy from real problems. And the biggest problem facing the black community, Tavis, is not racism. The biggest problem is children having children, and that is a product of the welfare state. Secondly, the problem of DWB, driving while black, is largely a function of the war on drugs. That's the reason there are so many interactions between blacks and the cops. We should call off the war on drugs. Blacks will benefit more than anybody else through the privatization of Social Security, something that Jesse Jackson and the Democratic Party oppose. So yes, I'm getting on some of these black leaders because I think they're doing a net disservice and taking time and energy away from problems that can be solved if we tone down the racism rhetoric.
Black people huddled in their homes at night, living under conditions, many times under conditions in poor neighborhoods that the average American wouldn't believe or tolerate. I mean, for example, in Washington, D.C., mothers serving their children their meals on the floor. So